With us now on set, former SEC chairman and CNBC contributor Jay Clayton. He's joining us to talk about the government's latest spate of regulatory actions, including cases against Microsoft and over the bid to buy Activision, and against Amazon for allegedly luring customers into subscribing to Prime. But he's a Renaissance man, and I'm sure you've thought about the developments over the weekend. We want to start with that. And what do you think this means for Putin, for the war in Ukraine, everything that our relationship with Russia, oil markets?
Yeah. Look,
too big an issue for. I think you've thought about it, haven't you?
I think we've all thought about it, right?
You know people in high places,
right? And we've all been like, it's kind of remarkable that the markets are so stable.
Yeah.
Including the commodity markets. What's interesting to me is 50,000 troops. Some estimate about how much that costs per week. What is it? $5 million, $50 million, depending on how much you're paying them. Like, where is that cash coming from? And it kind of goes back to, the beginning of the war and sanctions. What do we know? The world has found a way to get the resources that Russia is producing and to pay for them. Because where else would this money be coming from? And I think that's kind of a takeaway from this, is that you're looking at the commodity markets and people are saying, hey, they can figure this out, which is, we should take something away from that we really have not disentangled from what I would say is the very hot, very unfortunate, very amoral places in the world when it comes to commodities.
Does that mean that it's not effectively feasible to have sanctions that actually bite, or does it mean it wasn't executed the correct way?
I think it's more the former than the latter. You have to have partnerships around the world for sanctions to be effective in global markets, and this is a lesson that we're learning here. Yeah. And it is a key takeaway for the future.
So, I mean, obviously the oil is
flowing
from Russia too, and we should have known that from $69 a barrel, with the Saudis doing all they can to try to soak up some of the
including, as we heard earlier today, reports that they're worried about potential recession, maybe not in the United States, but in the rest of the world, and that they don't want oil to drop further.
We just had, I don't know if you saw the Jared Bernstein interview. He talked about the three basic tenets of what he calls Bidenomics, and I think the third one was competition and enhancing competition. I think he was talking about putting teeth in all the regulatory agencies in terms of antitrust, which you've talked about again and again, and that brings us to the Microsoft Activision deal and every other deal that's not going to get done in the Biden administration.
Let's take this to on the regulatory.
Perhaps
side.
Not going to get done.
But let's take this to a very high level on the regulatory side. What you're hearing from the leaders of the regulatory organizations is, if we're not losing cases, if we're not being pushed back on by the courts, we're not doing enough. Think about that for a second. That is a fundamental shift in how we as Americans view the role of the government. I don't want to be in a place where I know the government is going to bring cases they think they're going to lose. Imagine you're the person who is the subject of that case. Now, we're talking about corporations.
To see if they can, and if they're not stopped, they're going to,
Right, but this is an ethos now, which is, unless we're losing, we're not bringing enough cases. That may be fine for private litigants against each other and think about it, but when you have the power of the state, and you're supposed to only bring cases and only make rules that you think are going to pass judicial muster. And we're seeing a shift there, and I think we should think about whether that's appropriate or not. We can go into the details of each one of these cases or each one of these regulations, but at a 30,000-foot level, I think that's problematic.